Seats. All right, just a little bit of a speech to get us going on here. Hey, hat off, please. Rowan, you did really well. Rowan was the only person, I mean like the only person on every single homework. I mean, he did everything. I mean, he wrote all the steps, he did everything. When I handed a worksheet that had the answers, I mean, when there's like 5 steps to do to get to an answer and there's nothing on your worksheet except for the answer, I mean, I know what you guys did, right? Rowan did everything, right? You're in high school now, so yeah, the teacher's always going to get on your case, but the reality is that you're smart enough and you're able to make your own decisions about what you want to do. If you don't want to do the work, there's not much I can do about it other than put an F in the grade book, right? I don't put an F in the grade, but you turn in homework, I give you credit, whether it's right, whether it's wrong. If you turn in something, I'm going to give you credit. Don't take what I'm doing and equate that to you are doing well. If you're turning in homework that's just you're writing down answers, you're not doing your job. And many of you are not doing your job. We're not doing easy stuff right now. We're doing medium. If you're like, well, this fool just gave me all the answers. Well, this made my life a whole lot easier. Yeah, if you think that, go on with your bad self. The reality is that you're just causing more problems for yourself when we get to test day. Speaking of which, calendar. This is what it looks like. Now you are 9th grade, so the annual pain of state testing is much different when you're in high school. So here's what it looks like. We're going to do 2 weeks of school, and then we get to test week, which it used to be in 8th grade, a whole week. It's 3 to 4 hours now. That's it, and you go home. Okay, here's what your week of testing will look like. On Monday, you're at home. You don't even come to school. Because you're in high school. Different rules. On Tuesday, you're going to show up. I believe it's normal time, 7:30. You're going to show up. You're going to take the test. You're going home.
Is that for math or you're reading?
That's everything. One test. Well, it's broken up into sections, but it's PSAT. It's the practice or preliminary SAT test. Scholastic Aptitude Test. It's how you get into college. If you have no interest in getting into college, I would say, well, hold your powder until senior year and then make that decision senior year, not freshman year, when you convince yourself, I don't need to do this, and all of a sudden you're not ready when you decide you are wanting to go to college. The SAT test is, there's 2 tests, SAT, ACT, are what gets you into college. Doesn't matter you graduate high school, right? 99.9% of the colleges require you to pass is a relative term, pass the SAT, ACT. It means to take the test and get a score. And that score, depending upon what number you get on that, determines what college you can get into and what college you're not allowed to get into. And by not allowed, I mean like they allow you to turn in an application. They're like, no chance, hit the road, okay? That's a scary thought for some. I'll just say this. There's no one in this class that can't get into a college if that's what you desire to. Now, there's plenty of people in here that are not going to get into MIT or Harvard, right? And I mean that in the most kind way possible, right? But there's a college out there for you if you want to go to college. This is not a speech about, hey, let's all go to college. There's plenty of you that want to go into the military. Some of you want to work with your mom or dad in their business. I applaud that as well, too. Some of you may want to go to a trade school, right? Lots of options out there. If you want to get into a college, this SAT, the PSAT test, is important for you for a couple reasons. First and foremost, it's free, right? You don't have to pay money. Most people have to pay money to take the PSAT test. I forget how much, but it's over 50, but less than 100, I think.
80.
Right? It's a big chunk of change to take a silly test and to take 3 to 4 hours out of your time. Colorado buys it for you free.
My sister has to.
Yeah. It's a practice test. You take one practice one in 9th grade, you take one practice test in 10th grade, 11th grade, you take it for real and it counts. Like it's forever for the rest of your life attached to your name. Right? The score, I took the ACT test. That score that I took my junior year, it was the spring of junior year. I mean, that number is attached to my name for the rest of my life. If I want to get into another college, I have to turn in that score to that college, right? Along with my my what I did in high school, like my report cards. You got to turn that in. I got to turn in my ACT, SAT test if I want to go to college. So the PSAT test, what is it? It's practice, right? It's getting you ready for the one that counts. It also allows you, when you get to 10th grade, it allows you to get a scholarship if you do very well. Like they give away free money just for taking this test. You got to score pretty darn high on. We're going to be taking that on that Tuesday. You're going to come in Tuesday morning. You're going to take the test. I forget, it's either 3 or 4 hours long. And then you're going home. I don't know because I didn't get the full story what happens on Wednesday, right? I know that the 10th graders are taking their PSAT on Wednesday. I believe you guys are at home on Wednesday too. I think so.
So does that mean 10th grade's home on Tuesday?
10th grade is on Wednesday. You guys are on Tuesday.
So 10th grade's home on Tuesday?
Yeah. Regardless of whatever happens, I do believe it's your guys are at home on Wednesday. Regardless of what happens on Thursday, we're back in the normal schedule. So if you miss the test, the makeup's on Friday.
So if we don't miss it, we get to do nothing on Friday?
Say again?
So if we don't miss the test, we don't have to do anything?
Oh, no, we're going to start on 11.1 on Friday.
Wait, today's Monday, not Tuesday.
It is. We're doing something different. This is the 10.7 class. I just didn't make a calendar for today. So with the exception of this one Wednesday, that's what it looks like. I don't do like weeks and weeks and weeks of PSAT review. We'll just review something. You guys have never seen what the questions look like. For the SAT, I'm just going to call it the SAT test, even though it's called the PSAT. For the math portion, it's everything from Algebra 1 all the way up through Algebra 2. There's a little bit of pre-calc thrown in there, a little bit, but very small. None of you have had pre-calc. You haven't had any trig yet. Even my geometry students here haven't had trig yet. I don't think you're not in trig, are you? She's in it right now, so maybe she gets a couple extra questions because she's seen trig before. But for the majority of the kids here, you haven't had any geometry either, other than your normal 7th and 8th grade geometry. You will probably get a score that indicates that. The kids that are in geometry right now are absolutely going to score higher than you because they've had more of the stuff. Right? You, next year when you take your PSAT, you will score better. Why? Because you've had more knowledge of it as well too. I don't want you to panic like, well, how can I take a test on something you haven't taught me yet? It's not like that, right? You're going to get a score that compares you against all 9th graders in the country who also have not, for the most part, taken geometry. Only a small subsection of kids in 9th grade in high school take geometry, a small subsection, like 20%. Most kids are only in Algebra 1 right now. So across the board, this score is going to be pretty indicative of what you should get on your SAT test. More to follow on that when we get the results back. You get your results back pretty quick. It's not like 4 months from now. It's like within a month you get your results back for an SAT test. So the remainder of the time we got to finish chapter 10. So we're going to finish it on Thursday. I got 1, I got 2, I got chapter 10 test, and this right here, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just worried that maybe some kids will be absent. I'm not sure if I'm either going to start on Thursday or Friday. I did have chapter 10 test here, but most likely 11.1 will start right here. We're actually in really good shape for finishing the book this year. So we will do something on Thursday. It will probably be it won't be the chapter 10 test. We're going to get through at least chapter 12 in our book. Yeah.
Why are there 2 chapter 10 tests?
I just said I hadn't made up my mind completely whether or not right here, but I don't think this will be chapter 10 test.
Yeah, that'd be terrible because then you have like all that PSAT stuff and then you come back to the test.
Right. What's up?
What's the difference between the SAT and the ACT?
Very little in the sense of what's being asked on it. It's 2 different competing companies. You're going to hear people say that if you grow up in the South or the Midwest, they love the ACT. And if you grow up on the coast, they love the SAT. And we're kind of nearer the California than we are to the South. So we're kind of an SAT type thing. But the reality is for what you want to do, either test is fine. So Colorado decided the SAT, it's not that big of a difference. I've never took the SAT. I only took the ACT. Both of my daughters took both just to see if they could score higher on one than the other. A lot of you might do the same thing just to see what happens. It's not a requirement, but some kids do that because they're trying to get the highest score possible. Some people will say that the ACT is more math intensive than it is language arts. I don't know if I buy into any of that at all. But I do know this. I was worried. I didn't take calculus until college, and I was worried when I took it that there would be like the kids that were to calculus would score so much better than me because they were taking calculus. The answer is there is no calculus on the test. So when you get to be seniors, some seniors take the test again because they're trying to. So you take the ACT or the SAT or ACT towards the end of the junior year, and then you have to have your applications in before Christmas of your senior year. So some kids that score poorly or they think they can score higher will take the SAT, ACT again just to see if they can get a higher score.
So if you did your last visit,
Yeah, if you do well, then I did well in my first one. I was like, I'm not taking that silly test again. And the colleges that I wanted to get into, I had a perfectly fine score. Like I said, as soon as you start investigating colleges, you're going to see, hey, you have to have an SAT score of I don't know, 1,200 or higher, or 1,300 or higher, or something like that, or an ACTC score of this and higher. You'll become very familiar with those terms as you start to pursue, if you decide to go to college, as soon as you start doing that research type thing. And like I said, this is like a no joke, like it's not an easy test in the sense of, 2 + 2 type thing. It's going to be challenging math problems. The test is done with a calculator. So you're expected to walk in with a graphing calculator. If you do not right now have a graphing calculator, right, you have to have one to take this test. That means you borrow it from somebody, that's fine, but you got to show up on the day that's going to be on that Tuesday with a graphing calculator. The test is not written to do it by hand. It's written knowing that you have in your hand, this calculator, doesn't matter what the numbers are, you can type in any numbers. Yeah.
I still can't figure out how to use my graphing calculator. I don't have it with me, but right now.
Well, the more that you use it, the better. I'm able to say this as freshmen right now, what they're going to have, the type of questions that you would be able to use and understand. You can talk to the kids in geometry now, with the exception of some trig. There's nothing that you will need this calculator for next year. Algebra 2, pre-calculus, calculus, you need this calculator. But for geometry, we do like 2 + 5. That's the math problems in geometry. 2 + 5 or 120 - 60. That's the math problems. With exception of the trig portion, that's the one we got to use the trig function. But in Algebra 1, we graph linear equations. All of us, we spent the last 2 chapters on graphing linear equations, doing system of equations. You're going to see those on the PSAT test, absolutely positively. And your ability to find those buttons to press are going to be critical. All right, any other questions? All right, today we are going to do a review of everything that we've done so far in chapter 10 that we've all forgotten because we had 3 weeks away from each other. All right. Let's see, homework. Did I not get homework for anybody in this class?
What's the homework?
Actually, you guys did pretty good for some of the other classes. I literally had some kids blow everything off. I had some people, Aiden, turn in some work late, but for the most part, you guys did turn in your homework. I was appreciative. All right, let me get this started. Yeah.
So there was an assignment on Teams that was due January 29th, not January, March 29th.
That's one due today.
Give it back to you.
Date's 29th. Yeah, I figured as much. That's why I want to do a review and not jump into new stuff. All right, we will review this as quickly or as slowly as necessary. The first thing we did was we solved, the first thing we did was graph inequalities. But the first real thing we did, which was solve inequalities. This is as simple as it gets. You only need to remember one special rule, and that's if you ever multiply or divide by a negative number, you
Flip it.
got to flip the inequality. Doesn't mean if the answer's negative, you flip. It doesn't mean if you see a negative, you flip. But if you ever, on both sides of the inequality, if you ever multiply or divide by negative numbers, you got to flip the inequality. All right, first one. Let's see, it says -2 is less than or equal to p plus 10 over 2. Ryland, you want to get rid of the 10 or the 2 first? Let's get rid of the 2 first. How's that 2 attached to p? We get rid of division by, let's multiply both sides by 2. I'm impressed, Ryland. Good job. 2's cancel. Are we multiplying or dividing by a negative number? Are we multiplying or dividing by a negative number? We're multiplying by 2. So I do not flip the inequality. Inequality stays less than or equal to. Notice I get a -4. It's not because it's negative that we flip. It's because I'm multiplied by a negative number. But in this case, I'm not. So I do not flip the inequality. So you're left with what? P plus 10. We get rid of the 10 by. So we get -14 less than or equal to P. I skipped the step of writing -10 minus 10. Okay?
Why were you in Frank? That was so step. Why did you say that?
Because most people would have said, let's get rid of the plus 10 first. And it's really a 10, it's really a 5. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So most people would say, let's subtract 10 from both sides first. And you can't because it's really not 10, it's really 10 divided by 2, which is 5. No. Okay, open or close circle? Closed circle on what number? -14, put a closed circle. Which way are we shading? Left or right? I heard one left and a bunch of rights. We are shading right. Remember, you read it from variable to number. P is, well, bigger than or equal to -14. All right. I gave you a bunch of those. They're all basically the same problems, right? It's just a bunch of algebra. If you ever divide or multiply by a negative number, you flip the inequality. That's the easy stuff that you should have been able to handle all by yourself. So that's questions 1 all the way through 10. Chris, pick one. Let's do one.
5.
Let's do number 5. It is. Pick a different one, Chris.
6.
Thank you, bro. All right, here we go. Hey, we got distributive property. If you ever see distributive property, do the distributive property first. So if we do the distributive property, we get 2 plus 2x less than or equal to -30. I was hoping to get one where I had to flip the inequality, but not yet. Everybody see the distributive property? By the time you get over halfway through Algebra 1, drawing the little arrow things, okay, you can still do that. We've kind of done the distributive property 1,000 times by now. If you are going to make a mistake, it's typically in the distributive property, there's a negative involved, or you forget to distribute it twice. All right, Julie, which 2 are we going to get rid of? The one attached to the x, the one attached by addition? Which is easiest? What? Which one you want? Attached by multiplication or attached by addition? Which one's easiest to get rid of?
2.
Okay, addition's always easiest. So we're going to subtract 2 from both sides. So we get 2x less than or equal to, be careful, same signs, add -32. Stop me if you get lost. Last step, divide both sides, not by -2. So we're not going to flip the inequality, but by +2, we get -16. Open a closed circle, Piper. On what number? Piper is really good at this stuff. I mean, she's got this with graphing stuff really down really well. Which way are we shading, left or right?
You're shading right.
Right would be the numbers that are bigger or smaller than -16.
Smaller.
So as you go to the right on a number line, are you getting bigger or smaller?
We're getting smaller. No,
Count.
we're getting bigger.
You're getting bigger. And this says the solutions are what?
Greater than, less than,
That symbol is,
greater than.
that symbol's less than. So it's actually shade left. Okay. Questions? Confident? We did 2 out of 10. You should be able to do the other ones by yourself for practice. All right. Next section, the one that you've most likely forgotten. All right. Actually, no, this is same problem.
11.
Okay. So these are your compound inequalities. So compound inequality, you have 2 compound inequalities. One is an and one is an or. Okay. The rule for ands are you graph just what they have in common. So what they have in common, and or you graph everything. Ors will already be split apart from you. You see the word or, you're going to see the word or. If there's an and, they could be jammed together. We'll do an and one after this one. If you see or, it's good, it's cool because there's nothing to do except solve both inequalities, which is literally what you did questions 1 through 10. But you're going to graph them both on the same graph. Say again. So I have 2 inequalities here. 4 minus, oh, this one's going to be good. 4 minus 10b is less than or equal to 4. And we have 7b plus 7 less than or equal to negative 28. So I have 2 of these. We solve each one independently, but we graph them both on one graph. Get rid of your 4 first. Subtract 4 from both sides, and we get negative 10b less than or equal to 4 minus 4 is 0. Oh, we like that one. But guess what the next step we would have to do? By a what? By a negative 10, that means I got to flip the inequality. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 10. If you ever multiply or divide by a negative number, you flip it. Well, still get 0. Ever see what it did?
Yeah.
Second one, get rid of that 7 first. Subtracting 7 from both sides, I get negative 35.
And that would be 5.
Negative 5. I got to graph both of those on one graph. Both of them have closed circles. One of them has a closed circle on 0. One of them has a closed circle on negative 5. Rowan remembers that ors kind of always point away from each other. Or you just read what it says. It says that the solutions are bigger than 0, but smaller than negative 5. This is your classic or. The ands are the ones where you have 2 dots and you shade in between. Compound inequality. Cool?
Yeah.
All right. Which one's an and?
Number 12.
That doesn't have the word and on it. No, I want one that doesn't have the word and. Oh, they all do. Darn it. 13's an or. It says or. All right. We'll do number 14. Now, I'm going to write this as it also could appear. I should have put one like this. Negative 5 is less than or equal to x is less than 10. Here's your standard and. All right, where it looks like this. And step number 1 is you break it up into 2 inequalities. Negative 5 is less than or equal to x, and x is less than 10. Okay, that's your classic one. Be ready for that one. On this one, they use the word and. That's cool. Makes it easy. 7 plus 5p greater than or equal to negative 18, and negative p plus 6 is greater than 10. Subtract 7 from both sides. 5p is greater than or equal to negative 25. I just subtracted 7 from both sides. Divide both sides by p, and we get negative 5. On this side, this is the one that will trip you up because of this negative right here. Remember, there's really a -1 hidden there. Subtract 6 from both sides. Negative p is greater than 4. How do we get rid of the negative?
Divide by a -1.
So I'm divided by a negative, so I got to flip the inequality. So I'm dividing both sides by -1. And we get p is less than -4. This is an and, so we graph these two and we shade in between them. So I got a closed circle on -5. I got a closed circle on -4. Not much shading going on here.
It's an open circle.
Open circle. Who's got to see that first? All right, Rowan's +1. Good Lord. What happened to Rowan?
That's kind of mean.
Usually nobody has that big of a drastic change.
Maybe he just like decided to go do a change. You don't know.
I'm judging him right now. For me, it was geometries when I became that. I was pretty quiet, not paid. I didn't do much in Algebra 1, but geometry is when I started to wake up to math. Algebra was a bit too boring for me. But all right, questions on that? Ors, you got to be careful because when you get to Algebra 2, this changes a little bit. But in Algebra 1, all the ors kind of point away from each other. All the ands point into each other. It doesn't have to be that way, but that's the way it is in Algebra 1. Okay, that was compound inequalities. We finished up, and this was the last thing that we did, which was last Friday, on absolute value equations and inequalities, which is number what? Right here, 17. All right. So here's the rule. This is both for equations and inequalities. Right? Did I give you some equations or did I just give you inequalities?
Huh?
Did I give you just inequalities? Did I give you any equations?
I don't want that.
Equal sign or inequality? Yeah, I gave you just inequalities. Okay, so here's the rule. Somehow I forgot to put equations on this as well too. So let's do an equation one first. We'll do the same thing, we'll just put an equal sign. So we got 8 plus the absolute value of m over 9, and we'll say equals 9.
Can we do the normal one first?
Step number 1. You start solving this sucker until you get the absolute value symbols all by themselves. You just like treat this whole thing as an X. So I'm going to do algebra until I get this thing right here all by itself. I just need to get rid of 8. How to get rid of 8? So I subtract 8 from both sides, and I get the absolute value of m over 9 is equal to 1. Okay? Then we're going to write 2 equations.
I don't remember doing this.
This was Friday. If you didn't pay attention on Friday, then you didn't see this. All right. And the reason we write 2 equations is this, right? What number can I put in to make this true? But I also could put in -3. It's the same thing with absolute value. I could put in a 9. I could put in a -9. There's 2 answers for quadratics. There's 2 answers for absolute value. So we have to account for the fact that there is a negative possible answer. Bottom line, here's what you do. You get absolute value all by itself. When that is done, we write 2 equations. The first one is we just get rid of the absolute value symbols. There's your first. All I did was just erase the absolute value symbols. The second one is because it could be negative, we write the same thing, but we make this thing negative. There are your 2 possible answers that make this true. Now we solve these each all by themselves. The complicated thing is getting this thing by itself. This part is actually pretty easy. As long as you remember one of them stays as it is, just erase the absolute value. The other one, you make that thing negative. Looks like we're just multiplying both sides by 9. So we're going to say the 2 possible answers are either 9 or -9. Check that out. 9 divided by 9 is 1. The absolute value is 1. 8 plus 1 is 9. But it also works for -9. Negative 9 divided by 9 is negative 1. The absolute value of negative 1 is 1. 1 plus 8 is 9. That's how you get the two answers in there. Over here, the only thing that changes is this split. We got to do one extra thing for inequalities. So over here, everything is exactly the same for inequalities. We rewrite the first one.
Is that the answer?
Yeah, these two are the answers.
Oh, that's easy.
Now this is for equation. I didn't give you any equation. I made a mistake. I should have put some equations on this. For inequalities, it's the same process up until this right here. Okay. So we subtract 9 from both sides. If you ever do multiply divide by a negative number, you got to flip the inequality. We're not doing that here. So we get, let's see, absolute value of m over 9 less than or equal to. I subtracted 8 from both sides. We get 1. This is the part that's different from equality. It's not that much different. Over here, the only thing we did was erase the absolute value. We're doing the same thing. For the one on the left, we just erase the inequality or the absolute value symbol. So we get m over 9 less than or equal to 1. Over here on the right, we made that thing negative. We're going to do that, but we're also going to flip the inequality. So I'm going to flip the inequality.
That's it. That's the only difference.
That's the difference. Now we solve each one again. Just remember, you could possibly multiply by a negative number now, or divide. Have to flip it. So we get m is less than or equal to 9. There's one of the answers. And the other one is m is greater than or equal to negative 9. It's going to turn into an and statement. So it's a closed circle at negative 9, closed circle at positive 9. Says that the answers are smaller than 9, but bigger than negative 9. That's shading in between. There you go.
Oh, okay, that's easy. Is that it?
That is, and I do want to do a more complicated one like number
32.
32. That's 32.
Let's do 22. 22 is a good one. All right, so here's 22. Step number 1, just like equations, we get the absolute value symbol by itself. What's attached to it? So all I got to do is divide both sides by. If I divide both sides by 6, I get the absolute value of 8 plus 5r is greater than or equal to 48 divided by 6 is 8. All I did was divide both sides by 6. I just got rid of the 6.
Why would you
Is
divide?
that legal?
Oh, because it's.
It's typed by multiplication. Okay, we write our two inequalities now. The first one is just the whole thing without the absolute value. So 8 plus 5r is greater than or equal to 8. The second one, 8 plus 5r, we flip the inequality and we make the other side negative. Solve those two. It is possible in one problem to flip that inequality 3 times. If this 6 had been a negative 6, and if that 5 had been a negative 5, and let's say over that was a negative 2, we'd flip that sucker 3 times.
So if you flipped it once, it do the same thing.
Yeah, but I'm saying you'll either flip it once, you can flip it twice, you can flip it 3 times. It just depends on what the number is in front and what the two numbers are inside that are multiplied and being divided. In this case, well, there's no negative, so we're not flipping anything. Okay, well, clearly we're subtracting 8 from both sides. So we get 5r greater than or equal to 0. Well, divide by 5, that's r, is greater than 0. On this side, do we get an ugly number or what?
We get a 6.
We get negative 16. Subtracting 8 from both sides, and we got to divide by 5. We don't get a friendly number. So r is what? Negative 16/5. That's what? 3.2? Is that right? Negative 3.2?
Or negative 3. Can I just keep it as a fraction?
You can, but remember, we're going to graph the answer. So if you can think of this on a number line, great. If not, then change it to a decimal. Regardless, we know that the answers are bigger than 0, closed circle. This one's going to be an or.
So it's like
And negative 3.2, I believe is the answer. Negative 3.2, about right there. And it's less than. Somebody check the answer in the back. Make sure I got that wrong. Oh, I got it right here.
No, you got it wrong.
I better not have. I got it right. You can't tell that they do, but you can see their answer next to it says negative 16/5. Yeah.
We're eating in here.
if it's bigger than the lunch,
For you smarty pants out there, if you want to know whether it's an and or an or, whatever that symbol is. If it's greater than, it ends up being an or. If it's less than or equal to, right, it ends up being an and. So if you look at all the answers, question 24, notice the less than. All right, any questions? I did 1 and sometimes 2 of every single problem that's there. Did you? Okay. Use the remaining time to ask questions, get some work done if you need help. 10 minutes, let's call it. Don't let your mouth write checks that your body can't catch.
No, I'm gonna try.
Okay.
Yo, get it.
There's some saying like that.
It's the best thing I can do. It's like, kind of like I miss most of my sister trying to help my family.
Yeah.
Look out for yourself too.
What's 8 times?
My laptop turns off at 10, so
8 times what?
hopefully it'll be in
That's
bed
good.
by 10.
I'm in bed before 9 every day.
16.
Oh, can I go check if I left my bag for volleyball?
When I was your age, I couldn't do it either. But
It's so hard to sleep at that time. My body does not want to sleep.
Can I go check if I
what time do you wake up?
I like 6:30.
I get up at 5:30.
I get up.
That's my dad. That's how my dad was. He was in the army, so he wakes up
You
at that
got
time
the
every single morning.
You have the babysitter.
My stepdad wakes up at 10.
PT's at 6:30, so
You have to
Every time breakfast is ready, because like you're not up there by 6:30, you don't get breakfast.
the babies.
Give it to their back in the hallway. Yeah.
Julie, you got this? Let's do one together.
Upstairs in a minute. No, I wake up at 6:39.
Yeah, it's so cool.
I like to change.
I didn't come over at single day.
I know.
It's not good. I still want how much
I know, that's why we're gonna do it.
So
Which one? Let's do one together.
Did you really come over?
Yeah, what?
Having a show off.
At like
So we can just come over.
Yeah, the whole time.
How many sisters and brothers are there?
Two, you're done.
I know. The rate is crazy. Yeah, I do.
What's 10 minus 4? Plus 1.
Good job, dear.
You got that.
That's the number 7.
He's like, no, you gotta go.
I'm not.
I'm like, what else?
All right, look, number 7. What do you need to see besides number 1? Okay, what else do you see?
Yeah, you got air
See
on.
parentheses, right? See parentheses. So rewrite that after you get it.
Bigger. It's like, it's a layer on.
Oh, is that one still?
No, I love the air into a layer.
Later on.
Layer on.
You
And
have
I put it inside, I put it in the gym. Put it in the
You
gym.
put it in the.
And I got it back.
First step.
For how long?
$100.
Which yours?
With my gambit. They're for 100.
I didn't go on that side.
You want for like so.
I haven't even played it so long.
I had a speaker in the gym for so long.
I had it in.
If it said like 1 plus 96, then you write it. So everything you do on this side. What can you do together?
And then it
You got epically the baby.
Nope. Oh, imagine the baby gets on board.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, now we're just gonna solve for K. Get rid of that 8 first.
Me, I don't have a good story.
Okay, rid of the bind.
If
How do you get rid of addition? You subtract. Subtract 8 from both sides. That's how you get rid of add 8 and subtract 8.
9.
I wouldn't have to look under. Look up. And all you see is that front.
Okay, what number get rid of that?
Basically, that's
Where's the variable?
the same thing. Like,
What's attached to it? That's what we're trying to get rid of. We're trying to get the variable by stuff.
Should have worked.
Are you gonna get rid of the 11?
Should have worked.
Both sides.
Should have worked.
Are you divided by a negative? So I don't have to flip the inequality. But if it was negative 11, then we would flip the inequality. All right, do it.
But it would be like crushed.
I just wiped it off my shirt.
For the first like 10.
No, you perfectly done well. That's it. That is right. Notice you put the on that side and you put the inequality because you have to. Okay, so what does that say?
You smart.
Smart.
You flip the
So what are the numbers that are less than 8? Open or close circle. Okay. So if you see this symbol or this symbol, open circle. You see this symbol or this symbol, in other words, a line underneath, that's the closed circle. So what it really means is, open circle means you can't use the number that's underneath it. Closed circle means you can use. This means you can use 16. Open circle. Open circle means you can't use 16. 16 wouldn't make this true. So in this case, 8 doesn't make this original one true. But any number that's what smaller than 8 does. So you put an open circle on 8 and you shade to the. There you go. So for instance, what number are we saying is the solution? The open circle is on 8. So 8's not. So for instance, like 7, you put 1 to go to the house, 7 plus 2, 9 times 4, 36 and 49. Less than 9. If you want to go through it. That's what you're saying. So you did that one perfect. Now do the rest of it. Sophia? Homework from your class. Yeah. I won't forget everybody put in the zeros.
These are weird.
You do your
If you send up
grades on the book, do something.
And she's gonna do like 500 novels.
I'll send over backwards.
She's level like
Print
50
you out
people.
hard copies, I'll do
Like
whatever.
50. Well, she's like, I don't do like very like.
So what part of this do you not understand?
She like gonna do this flyer. She like every single thing. Like,
Yeah,
good.
she told me that she's like.
What's up? Which one? So usually if there's a distributive property, it's where the mistake is.
Yeah.
Negative 8 times over 2. 16, you wrote 16. Negative 8 times n.
I just want to get one more time. and have one.
And you wrote, so far so good. Then subtract 16, there's a mistake, you divide it. It's negative 120 minus 16 is not
I'll get
28.
you 20 cents later, and I'll get you.
And then you divide it. We're just subtracting here. Negative 132. I'm sorry, put the 16 in your subtraction, right?
I just do these.
There's like
120.
30. I just sat there.
Hey, same or different signs. So you add numbers, so 136 to 32. So negative 136.
It's weird, but
It'll work from there.
Probably need more money.
So you subtract from both sides, you got 309. Chris, you got this? No? Let's do one. Which one you trying to do? Which one together? Which one you want to do? Okay, then let's do it together. First step.
She goes to sleep at like 9.
But on the other side, multiply both sides by 3. You don't get 3, you get.
I just didn't like
Yeah. Right, but not. But the inequality, inequality symbol, did you multiply by everything else? Multiply it, stay the same. And right what's left. 3 cancels, right? Everything but the 3. Right there, right there. And now what are we getting rid of? Because that's the side of the means on yes. A negative 10. How do you get rid of negative 10? Add 10 to those sides. You get it. We direct whole thing out. 19 inequality symbol would be. All right, so open or close circle. So put it on 19. Open circle on 19. Now, does this say E is bigger or smaller than 19?
Dying slightly.
Where are the numbers that are smaller than 19?
A layer of you is literally dying. That's something.
Put paper over.
Oh, that's your calculator.
I mean, that's always really flat.
Notice they put the B first, and you wrote second, you have the same thing. Right, you have different inequality, you have to be on this side. Perfectly fine. Got this? Yeah?
Well, by accident? Yeah.
All right, good. I mean, I can go to college because they said I could have a calculator. I would absolutely 100% not trust myself. To go type that in my calculator. I mean, it's not that I can't do that, but I'm not going to. I'm going to use calculator 100%. I'm going to do every calculation on that. I'm going to do it twice though. The nice thing about the graphic calculator is you can visually see what you just typed.
On Friday.
Yep.
Okay, so the answer is 17, but like I'm not gonna get 17.
Remember, if you divide by negative number, look and 8 goes into 13 one time, with 5 left over, 56. 8 times 756.
I have friends who
Negative seven, negative
I know about that concept.
My little.
I mean, yeah, no, it's like, I'm right.
Yeah.
Your calculator, I'm so confused. I don't think any of you are right. I am right.
Let's do that first.
I learned this
Get rid of it.
I know I'm correct.
I don't know how to get rid of it.
Do the opposite.
Why are you asking?
It is subjective. So the opposite of that would be added to those sides.
Wait, I have to do it.
Both sides, one down.
Do you know that my grade stop in first 12 because 5 times 12 is only 60?
I added one.
No, but both sides of the
I give up.
Talk about it.
Stop.
left side and the right side.
Is it on? It's on. It's on. It's on.
Both sides. That's one side, where's the other side?
I'm leaving. Actually, I'm gonna come tomorrow. Whatever.
Don't even. They just want that.
None, so there's not.
Okay, multiplication.
Okay, well,
Yeah, I should write that.
parentheses, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Right.
Make my beautiful morning
Scratch out
and
that.
then work around.
It's not there.
Hey, did you steal my pencil?
You didn't catch it. That's why it's why.
For my what?
Chuck, you too long to find it. Friendly catch. Hey, get it.
You gotta share with me, like, you just got me hyped up for no reason.
I probably.
Either way, you have to share with me.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna. I was really excited for lunch, and then I was like,
Just in case.
I was really hyped up, and then I realized the cheese was cold. And I was like, okay, that's the only reason I'm excited was for the cheese. If it's not cold, unless it's melted. Only time. If it's like room
Hey,
temperature,
Kane's not here, let's count 2 minutes.
if it's room temperature.
Josie.
I went like this.
Rowan, Rowan,
Rowan.
count 60 seconds and then let everybody out.
Eating cheese angrily. Angry cheese.
Alright, we're done.
Enjoy your lunch.
You want art, right? Are they doing that? What is my art class? And, Like,